In this video, I'll demonstrate how to use the new thin knife brush I created for Rebelle. This brush is great for painting waves, so I'll share an easy technique for painting them. I've already filled in the sky and base color for the ocean onto separate layers since we were just focusing on the technique for painting waves. If you'd like a detailed lesson about painting seascapes, I have a free course you can watch. In the Layers panel, I'll enable pigment mixing so that we get a more painterly blending of colors. Next, I'll select the thin knife found in the palette knives category. I'll sample the base color of the ocean and make it lighter. I have my color picker set to a grid with these settings here. This brush is very thin and flat, and the angle can be rotated using either rotation if you have the Wacom Art Pen, or tilt if your pen supports that. If you don't have either, then you can change the angle manually in the brush creator under Shape and Grain. First, disable the rotation expression, then change the angle to 90 degrees if you want it to be horizontal, or 0 if you want it to be vertical. I'll turn on Lock Transparency for this layer so that I can only paint inside the ocean area and not onto the sky. The size you choose for your brush will determine the thickness of the waves. I am holding Control and dragging with my pen to resize my brush. For there to be a proper sense of perspective in your painting, you'll want to make the background waves smaller than the foreground waves. I'll paint with a small brush along the horizon using short horizontal sweeping strokes. There will be many more waves in the background than in the foreground, so as we move into the foreground, we'll make the waves less numerous with more spacing between them. Waves are an amorphous shape, so like clouds and trees, they can take on many appearances. I'll show you a variety of wave shapes in this demonstration. Let's have some waves that are a bit more turbulent. I'll sort of outline the main geometry of the waves. The ocean creates peaks like a mountain, so I'm sort of dividing it up in a similar way. Notice how I've slanted the lines to emphasize those peaks. Next, we'll get a feel for the painting and blending properties of this brush. When this brush is in paint and blend mode, using heavy pressure will deposit paint while lighter pressure blends. With some practice, you should be able to lay down the edge of a wave and then blend it out to create form and shadows. Alternatively, you can toggle this brush between painting and strictly blending simply by pressing V. As you can see, I don't even need to add more paint. I can just smudge the wave edges to pull them around on the canvas. Follow the basic contours you established, but the rest can just be done from your imagination. You can look at a reference, but it may be hard to copy an ocean exactly. It's much easier just to let your own details happen naturally rather than try to match a photo. Next, I'll switch back to painting mode and hold Alt to sample the darkest wave color. I'll paint over some of the lighter colors to create more shadows and holes in the waves. Just as well, I can sample the lighter wave color and add more of that back in. This is meant to be a back and forth process, so don't expect to get your waves looking perfect in the first pass. Now let's add in a crashing wave. There's a spot back here where I can add one. I'll make my brush much smaller and rotate my dab so that I'm able to create curved strokes that show the direction the wave is rolling. Next, I'll sample the darker color again and emphasize the wave contours and put a shadow underneath the upper edge. Again, I am working back and forth between these colors to give each wave character. Let's sample the lightest wave color and make it even lighter and more saturated. I'll paint this inside of the midtone wave color to build up the form. Don't forget that the background details will be thinner and more numerous, while the foreground wave details will be wider and more spaced apart. Back again to that dark color. I really am just letting my imagination wander here. Wherever it feels like a shadow should be, I put it there. Next, I'll make my color brighter and more saturated and shift the hue to red. This will be some of the warm sky color reflecting off of the waves. Again, put this inside of the lightest wave color. Make your brush smaller and just put in thin dashed lines in the background. I'll create a new layer called Crash and select the Broken Soft brush. Use medium pressure to get a broken shape with a lot of texture. This brush can also blend with lighter pressure. Make the crashing seafoam go in the direction the wave is heading. Next, I'll select White and use medium to light pressure to add a few highlights to the foam. I'll return to the ocean layer, select the thin knife, and choose that light pink color I used for the warm sky reflections. I want to add these reflections on the backs of the waves since they are pointed directly at the sky. I'll sample the dark wave color and add some shadows beneath the foam. Next, I'll sample one of the lighter mid-tone wave colors, and with a small brush, I'll add in some fine ripples in between some of the waves. I'll take my time here and really try to add in a lot of character. After that, I'll sample one of the lightest wave colors and add some ripples with that. Don't forget that you can also switch to blending at any time with V. Pulling paint around can be just as effective as adding paint. I'll disable lock transparency and use a small blender to lightly brush along the horizon to break it up so it isn't a perfectly straight line. Imagine there are very distant waves all along here. I'll re-lock the transparency, sample the red from the sky, and paint over some of the mid-tone wave colors, mostly on the right sides of the peaks. Again, this will look like certain sides of the waves are reflecting the warm color of the sky. Back to the dark wave color to add some shadows against some of the pink. I'll choose a lighter pink color and add some highlights to the waves, centered in the mid-tone color. After that, I'll touch up the waves in a few places where they don't look right. I'll flip the canvas with Shift F to help me get a fresh view of the painting. Then I'll continue sampling colors from the canvas and detailing the waves. The sky is also blue, so I will want to add a bluish color to the waves. Next, I'll select the glow brush in the rendering category and sample one of the dark wave colors. With a large brush, I'll paint a gradient from the horizon downward. This makes the background of the water look more distant. Next, I'll create a new layer beneath the ocean for land, then select the broken soft brush. With a more indigo blue, I will paint with medium pressure to get some broken textures that look like distant trees on land that is far away. You may want to lock the transparency of that layer and use Grayscale Preview with G to see if you need to paint over it with the soft airbrush to lighten it until it looks like it has the proper contrast. It should be a bit lighter than the dark wave colors. I'll return to the thin knife and keep it on the blending only mode. With lighter pressure, I'll get sort of a smoother blend, which can be useful to soften any areas of the waves that are too sharp. Don't overblend or you'll ruin all that detail you worked so hard to add. As a last step, I'll flip the canvas again to check my work. I could probably spend a lot more time on this, but since this is just meant to be a quick brush demo, I'll stop here. But you can certainly keep adding detail and maybe even add some clouds or a sun to the sky to make this a finished painting. That's all for this demonstration. If you want to learn more of my landscape painting techniques, be sure to check out my courses. Thanks for watching.